Right. Hello and welcome to the Zonal Weakness brought to you by Gone Football Fantasy, powered by Fantasy Football Scout. And of course, we are back for Game Week 20. And of course, this is an important game week given the fact that, the fixture is coming fast and quick. We will be recording, we are recording this currently as the Game Week 19 has already started, and we're doing it a little bit earlier than we expected because it's the festive fixtures which is coming thick and fast, and obviously there are a lot of people will be traveling and of course going on leave. We'll be traveling at the same time, so we thought it would be good if we can get this information out as quickly as possible, and that would allow people a little bit of more time to take and watch it as and when they can. So that's why we are back for Game Week 20. So while you do watch it, do keep in mind that some of the information or the data that you are seeing is a little bit not taking Game Week 19 into consideration. So that's an important factor. So, and of course, some of the injuries that is going to take place this week are not kind of covered. So to keep an eye on the press conference ahead of Game Week 20 before you finalize your own team. So now let's get straight away into the zonal weakness. And of course, this is the Game Week 20 zonal. And if you haven't followed and liked and subscribed to our channels, please do so now, because we are producing regular content. And even during the festive fixtures, we are continuously churning out more and more content for you to ensure that you're up to date even during your festivities and all the leisure time and the holidays that you are currently spending. Right, and all the stats that you see are taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. Gone Football Fantasy is the only page in Bangladesh, and of course, they're part of the Fantasy Football Scout network. We are kind of proud to have this partnership. So if you are interested in all the data that you see currently, including the zonal data, then please do click in the link in the description below, and you'd get a certain percentage of discount available. And yeah, it's probably worth the investment that you're going to make. Let's move on to the chart, and this is what we get to see is this the zonal weakness for Game Week 20. And the first fixtures that we are looking into is Manchester United versus Leeds United, expecting this match to be quite fearsome, and at the same time, there could be a lot of goals in this match. But obviously, what we are seeing is Cunha being in everybody's team and is one of the popular picks from Manchester United. We can see that Leeds have actually considered 21 chances down the right flank and are ranked sixth, slightly outside our perimeter that we tend to mark with green, which is the worst five. So Cunha, of course, sorry, Leeds United is just ranked sixth, so that's why it's not colored. From the center, Sesko seems to be a good pick, and as well as Mount, because here Leeds United have actually considered 18 chances and are ranked third. And Dorgu and Dalot, I know there's a bit of a discussion around it, but I wouldn't really look forward to this particular fixture for them, given the fact that they have only conceded 14 chances and are ranked 16. So not really much there for Dorgu and Dalot. But again, one of them, if they shift to the right flank of Leeds United, that could provide an opportunity. So do keep an eye on the press conferences and the information that you will hear from Ruben Amorim in order to better understand as to which of these wingers and the back fullbacks and where they are supposed to be playing. So that would give you a bit of an idea as to who could really capitalize the weak zone of Leeds United. Moving on to the next fixture, which is Wolves versus West Ham. And I know this is a battle of relegation here. And here it looks like Paqueta could be a good shout. But for this game week now, this is game week 20, and we are just starting the second half of the season. Not really an ideal time for people to, some of us to actually use the chips, but also to play 1 week punt. So I wouldn't really recommend any of the West Ham assets for despite the zonal being very good. I wouldn't really suggest any of the West Ham assets as a sort of a 1 week punt. However, the data suggests that Wolves seems to be very weak down the center, conceding 18 chances and are ranked third worst. But also left flank seems to be a bit the weakest for Wolves. Particularly with 31 chances considered, and they're the worst side. And this is where Bowen and Walker Peters could play. So Bowen would be an interesting pick for those who might still, despite West Ham not being performing extremely well this week, this season. Um, those who are tempted by Bowen or were tempted by West Ham, perhaps Bowen could be the only pick that could you could consider. Next fixture is, of course, Sunderland versus Tottenham. And Tottenham, of course, kept a clean sheet last week. And currently, with Sunderland, their numbers doesn't seem to be really promising a lot of um, less chances, to be honest. If you look at it from all the zones, really, Sunderland are really conceding quite a number of chances. All the number of goals they're conceding is quite comparatively less, and I think this becomes quite clear when you look at the goal conceded chart in comparison to the chances conceded. And this is where, of course, if we are to look at the right flank first, 29 chances conceded by Tottenham, and they're the worst side. But again, down the center, they have considered 23 chances and are ranked worst again, where 𝐙𝐿𝐴 is likely to play. And then 26 chances down the left flank, where they're ranked third worst. So this is where Kudus and Poro. So Kolo Muani, 𝐙𝐿𝐴, and Kudus and Poro are the ones that you could perhaps consider, given that headed considered is also where Sunderland have shown a little bit of weakness. They're ranked second worst, but also in terms of the crosses considered from the both flanks, Sunderland seems to be weak. So they are conceding a lot of chances on crosses, but not really conceding that many goals, which we will be able to look at later on. Nottingham Forest versus Aston Villa, and I think this is where Morgan Rogers owners could be happy, particularly Nottingham Forest showing a lot of weakness down the right flank, conceding 22 chances and are ranked the fifth worst. So yeah, I wouldn't be really surprised again if Rogers is again among the score sheet. So this could be another good fixtures for Rogers. Burnley versus Brighton. This is where De Kuyper and Gomez looks like promising options from Brighton, with 23 chances conceded by Burnley. And of course, they're ranked the fourth worst. So that's another one that you could look. In terms of the headed conceded, also, Burnley seems to be showing a lot of weakness, conceding 16 headed conceded. And of course, they are ranked third worst. I know Mitoma is just back, but he's not regularly starting. So De Kuyper could again provide some of those tempting crosses, these dangerous ones that he's kind of frequently providing. So he could be again in this match, could perhaps provide an ideal opportunity for him to provide those kind of crosses where he would probably find himself in the score sheet, given the fact that Burnley have conceded 70 crosses and are the worst side from the right flank. Next fixture is, of course, Bournemouth versus Arsenal. And of course, the only player that I would really make a shout out is Saka. Obviously, he is the one we could really look into. Bournemouth is interesting, and we will touch upon this in terms of the goal conceded when we get there. But 26 chances considered down the left flank, where Saka will be occupying that particular space. So Timber and Saka looks to be promising. Timber, who did not play the last match. And yeah, they are ranked third worst. So that's another good fixture for Saka owners and Timber. In terms of the Crystal Palace versus Newcastle, I think the only thing that I would really like to talk about, not much in terms of Gordon, Barnes, and Hall, because they are slightly outside the perimeter that we kind of mark, and also Murphy and Bruno G. Both have conceded 19 and 18 chances from both sides, and are ranked 8th respectively. And headed conceded is where it gets a little bit interesting. So Walter Mada, who happens to be one of the favorite transfer in from a lot of managers, could do particularly well in terms of the headed conceded, with crosses coming in from Hall or Gordon. And I think that kind of creates. So those tripling up on Newcastle, this fixture could be interesting in terms of the assist and the goal potential from Walter Mada. So I think this is another interesting shout. Moving on to the next slide, which is this one, as you can see on the screen. And I'm not really going to touch upon all the blank fixtures, but straight away moving on to the Everton versus Brentford. And I think Barry and Beto looks to be the ones promising, particularly because Brentford have shown a lot of weakness down the center, conceding 18 chances and are ranked third. But in terms of crosses conceded as well from the left flank and the right flank, Brentford seems to be quite weak because of the 69 crosses from the right and, of course, 70 crosses from the left, both ranked second respectively. And I think this is where Grealish could do well again. And I know a lot of managers are kind of pondering whether they should move to Grealish or not, or whether they should bring in him. But yeah, this move match and along with other fixtures, I think this could turn out to be quite an interesting move. But again, not suggesting that you should pick him, but yeah, do keep an eye on this particular match. The next two fixtures are obviously not really many FPL standout pick options, but still the leakiness and the weaknesses of both the teams are kind of exposed through the zonal. As you can see, it's Brighton playing against Burnley and of course West Ham playing against Wolves. And you can see Brighton's weaknesses clearly out there. 26 chances considered down the right flank, ranked second, and 30 chances considered down the left flank and are ranked second. But again, Burnley options are not really our favorite FPL pick currently, so I wouldn't really be suggesting one. Broja, of course, could do well again in this match in terms of the headed considered, given the fact that Brighton have considered the most number of and are the worst team in terms of headed considered. But West Ham and of course Wolves, Wolf picks are not the ones that we are really looking forward to, so I wouldn't really touch upon. But again, it also indicates that West Ham is also not defensively solid, so some of the assets from Wolves could score, given that 25 chances considered by West Ham from the right flank, and of course 23 chances considered by West Ham from the left flank. And these Wang and of course Arias are the ones who could occupy these particular positions. But yeah, not really much to do. But again, not suggesting that you should be picking these assets. Not really our favorite. But then if you are tempted, the zonal weakness kind of indicates where the things stand. Let's move on to the team of the week. And Richarlison, as you know, as we have seen in the data table in the first slide, kind of clearly stands there playing against Sunderland. Bowen, of course, we discussed elaborately about it, playing against Wolves, and that's why he makes it. Rogers is an interesting Kuna as well. Paqueta was only because they're facing Wolves here. Kudus is particularly because of the vulnerability of Sunderland, particularly from that particular wing. Saka, we have already touched upon, given the fact that he's the only Arsenal option that tends to stand out for the zonal this week. Madsen playing in the similar side as Rogers, so yeah, that's why he's there. Timber playing in the similar side of Saka, that's the reason. And Poro, of course, playing in the similar side with Kudus, that's where. And in terms of the goalkeeper, we have gone for Verbruggen. And yeah, so I wouldn't really, really not the strongest looking team, to be honest, in terms of the zonal weakness for Game Week 20. But still, these are the players that tend to stand out from the data that we currently have. So right out there, any pick that you have, you think is interesting, please do let us know in the comments. So let's move to the goals considered chart. And I think this is where we will get things a little bit of more clarity. And I was just talking about Bournemouth when we were discussing about Arsenal. And as you can see, in terms of the worst teams from the goal considered section, you can see the fourth worst team is now currently Bournemouth. And from Game Week 12 onwards until now, they have conceded 15 goals over the last 7 game weeks. So that's more than 2 goals per game. And I think that's quite telling. And I think what's also interesting is that Bournemouth was in the top half in terms of the defensive numbers when Senesi and others were really doing well, and we had all picked them up. But now I think the last 7 game weeks have kind of shown a bit of weaknesses from the zonal point and also from the defensive point. And that's why Bournemouth is now currently the 4th worst team. And you can clearly see conceding 31 chances, 33 goals, out of which 15 goals have actually come in the last 7 game weeks. And I think that's quite telling. So basically around another 18 goals have been considered over 12 game weeks, whereas in 7 game weeks they have conceded over 15 goals. And I think that's quite worrying and concerning. So Saka could again do very well in this particular fixture, exploiting. Wolves, West Ham, Burnley, and Leeds. We have discussed this over the every week, so not much changes. Again, these are the 4 5 leaky teams that are showing defensive vulnerability and are conceding more goals. Although you see Sunderland is not here, and despite the fact that we saw in the table earlier that Sunderland have actually considered a lot of chances, but not really considering a lot of goals. And you can see that Sunderland is actually not, in terms of the goal considered, they're not even in the worst in teams, but rather we'll see them in the next chart where they're there. And you can see Sunderland is actually the third best side in terms of the goal considered, although they are one of the worst side in terms of the chances considered. So the comparison of chances and the goals is quite stark. So although Sunderland is conceding a lot of chances, they're not really conceding that many goals. And I think this is quite clear from these two charts if you have really compared. Third best team in terms of the goal conceded, and really one of the worst teams in terms of chances conceded. Not much changes again in terms of the best two defensive side. Arsenal and of course City are still there. Aston Villa has moved in along with Chelsea, and Sunderland remains where they are. Newcastle has slipped out, of course. I know, obviously Tottenham moving into the 12th and the 13th position right now, but it was Bournemouth who was actually ranked in the 11th to 15th category when we had picked when all of us had actually gone for Senesi and Truffet and others, but now they are the fourth worst team, which we have already shown. So yeah, I think that's all that we have right now. Thank you so much for joining, and I hope Bethany will be back in January, so you will get to see me less, or at least not that you get to see me less, but you will get to hear less from me, and there will be Bethany who will be offering more information and more analysis from her point of view. So once she's back, we'll be, of course, happy to have her on board. But until then, enjoy the festivities and enjoy the new year. This will be the last word that we are doing the zonal before the new year starts. So wishing you all a happy new year 2026 and all the success in terms of FPL and also in your life. I hope you all are able to accomplish what you want. With that note, take care and wishing you all a happy new year once again. Bye bye.